Today we're going to talk about a blueprint-focused repair shop. Henry Ford invented the assembly line. Pretty straightforward. Cars come in. Each process was broken down incrementally. Assembly, one step at a time. Pretty understandable. Later on, the Japanese in the 80s about bankrupt the U.S. car manufacturers by taking this to the next level. By implementing the 5 S's and process-centered environment, they were able to dramatically increase the speed of the assembly line. By making our shop blueprint focused, we can replicate the same success that they had. In a traditional body shop, you had the office and the shop. It's very simple setup. Cars come in to the shop, back. The challenges with this shop setup is that it requires highly skilled technicians that need to know a variety of tasks. They need to be able to paint, they need to be able to do body work, polish, detail. Because of the lack of technicians and their abilities, we need to segment this in the same similar situation that Henry Ford did on the assembly line. So the first step of that, and we all are kind of familiar with this in the industry, is we went from combo technicians that did everything, is we went and broke body and paint into separate. So we have the office, body, paint, back to body, back to office. Pretty fundamental and pretty easy. In order to reduce the skill sets even further, we now can break down the departments from office, blueprint, or disassembly, body, paint, reassembly, back to delivery. By increasing the departments and decreasing the skill sets in each position, we can hire a lower skill level employee. Also, by creating this process, or PCE, process-centered environment, we can reduce fog and increase throughput. In the traditional body shop, it does have an advantage because we have less communication. When you segment each individual department, you increase the communication as required. So if we can have the efficiencies of individual departments, but decrease the amount of communication needed, this system is way more efficient and creates more throughput. We can decrease the communication through standardized processes. Visual aids, where are your keys located? Where's the cars that need painted? Where are they parked? By creating more visual aids, you can increase the throughput and increase the efficiency. In the first example, we're going to start out with our goal sales. We're going to start with a $5 million shop. If we have a $5 million shop, we know that we need to put $417,000 worth of throughput per month. Breaking down further, $96,000 per week, $19,000 per day. With a $3,500 average ticket, we know that we'd have 5.5 cars per day. With a total of daily input into the shop, we need to put 120 hours total into the shop per day. If we break this down even further, we need 600 hours of production per week. Of that, historically, not always, and hell may disrupt this, we would have 400 hours of body, 200 hours of paint. Breaking down each department, we would need to put into the shop, we know it takes about 15% of the total labor effort to do a proper blueprint. This is a complete teardown and the first correct estimate of the vehicle. We know that the average estimate, curb estimate accuracy is at best 70% accurate. So we're going to pick up the 30% that is missed in the initial estimate in this blueprint. That'll take 12 hours a day, 60 hours per week, and this can be obtained with 2 C-level technicians. The body shop would then need to put through 44 hours per day, 220 per week, which could be done with 2 A techs or maybe 3 B techs. Paint department needs to put 40 hours per day, 200 per week. A 3-man team can obtain this. Assembly, 30% of the process, 24 hours per day, 120 hours per week with 2 B technicians. And then, as you can see, the shop requires a lot less of this, which we all know is very hard to come by. With these two diagrams, I can show a traditional body shop layout with a full blueprint shop. As you can see, it's the same square footage. In the traditional body shop, you would have 10 working stalls. Each technician historically would request 2 stalls. Technician 1, Technician 2, Technician 3, Technician 4, Technician 5. Each technician would say, I need 2 stalls. But truly, how many cars can he work on at one time? He can only work on 1 car. The reason that we need the 2 stalls is generally speaking, they're working on one, and one is being blueprinted. So truly, this stall right here is a wasted space because this technician is only working on 1 car at a time. Working, blueprint, working, blueprint, working, blueprint. In this traditional body shop, if it's let's just say it's an average Monday, and we take in 10 cars, we know that we're going to have to take in, by taking our 5.5 cars per week, or per day, we would need 27.5 cars per week. Traditional body shop, the only way we thought we could obtain this is bringing in potentially 13 cars on Monday and maybe 13 cars on Tuesday. If we load this shop on a Monday morning and we were able to input the first 13 cars, chances are none of these technicians are going to have a car to work on until mid-morning on Monday. Because as these cars go into for teardown, these technicians want to get to work. So we load every stall with a car because we're just in a mad dash to input all these cars. So we have 10 cars in the shop. Estimators in the front, they're sitting waiting for teardown. Technicians now have the shop full and it's a mad dash to get these things blueprinted. Technicians start, and there's varying levels of jobs in here, and maybe a couple small bumper jobs will get done first. But as you can see, by noon of that day, we're going to have how many cars ready for blueprint? We're going to have a potentially of 10, maybe a few less cars ready for that blueprint. We're going to say that we do not have enough estimators. To do a really good estimate, we know it takes 1.5 hours per estimate. Well, we already know in an 8.5 hour workday that there's no way that we're going to reach 13 cars blueprinted. And at best, we would have that done at the end of the day. So these technicians maybe are only able to accomplish the first 15% of our goal, which is our blueprint. So in order to make this happen, our estimators will tend to do half tickets. To get the ball rolling, take off the bumper, I'll come back and I'll clean it up. We got to get these cars going. So we're not doing a really good job at analyzing the cars. And most of our workload is rolling into the next workday. So as you can see, this is a train wreck from the beginning. And this same problem flows through the whole shop because these same cars that are getting dumped in and the estimators are doing half tickets and having to come back and do a better job later are dumping in the paint department. And so the painters in this whole scenario have not had any cars to work on whatsoever. Our paint department's empty. They're sitting on buckets on most of the Monday. As you can see through the hump of the work week, Monday comes in with a lot of cars in the body shop, and that big surge of 13 cars and then 13 cars on Tuesday dump into the paint shop. So the painters are overworked and overstressed in the midweek. Same goes for reassembly. We're trying to reassemble 13 cars on Friday because we know we need to get those cars out on Friday. The traditional in on Monday, out on Friday, creating stress and high and low workloads throughout the week. The blueprint-focused shop remedies this. We're now going to change our 5 technicians to 1.5 stalls. 1.5 stalls per technician. So the stalls are actually more working space. We're going to allocate 2 of these stalls to blueprint. We're going to allocate 1 of these stalls to parts carts. This frees up this actual working space, which we already recognize that each of these technicians can only work on 1 cart at a time. Their working space is actually increased because now they're working with a 1.5 stall. They have room for a parts cart, their car, and extra space around the car to work. So we're using the same shop space, but we're increasing the work area of the technician. So in the same scenario, we have Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, Tech 4, and Tech 5. Same shop space, just allocated differently. Parts carts are allocated in one area. So once a complete blueprint is done, the parts are loaded on the carts, and those parts go to the parts cart holding area, which should ideally be set next to the parts department. As parts flow in, parts can be mirror matched to the existing damaged parts. Then, as the technician is working on the car with that cart, those parts go to his stall. He has plenty of working space, and there's less confusion of what is happening in the shop. In this scenario, you can just see that there is parts carts in all the stalls. There is a lot of cars in the shop, chaos, and less linear flow through the shop. In addition, when we have a blueprint team, we know that the blueprint team can cycle 120 total ticket hours through per day. This team would need to cycle 5.5 cars per day. So it's the goal of scheduling to have an equal amount of cars delivered per day into the shop, because we know that this blueprint team, as good as it is, to do an effective job of equal flow, we would have 5.5 cars per day. We all know that this may be not realistic, so we might look a little bit heavier loaded in the first of it. In that loading, we would have, in the work week, we would have, on Monday, we would have 8 cars, Tuesday, 6 cars, Thursday, 5 cars, Thursday, 4 cars, Friday, 4 cars. So we have a more linear flow through the blueprint, and we can have the blueprint team is working consistently every day. By having the blueprint team doing damage analysis consistently through the work, we're going to increase By having the blueprint team working on 5.5 cars per day, we know that the average estimate takes 1.5 hours. So it's realistic that we can cycle through those 5.5 cars every day. This in turn these cars dump into the parts, weight, hold phase. Make sure I get my spelling right. So our parts, weight, hold department is continually getting flooded full of accurately blueprinted cars. We don't have half tickets. These cars are looked through with accurate photos, marked up, and processed properly. As this parts, weight, hold fills, this also remedies our parts problem that we're having. We do not know which one of these cars is going to be ready to go into the body shop. We may be waiting for a critical part, but we do not want this car to enter the body shop until it has all the pieces that it needs, that we could actually get it through the body shop. So we do not want to start and stop cars. So we're going to leave these cars, and this pool is being loaded in a more linear fashion every day. This reduces the stress load on the blueprint team, reduces the stress on the parts allocation team, and reduces the stress on the body technicians because they are going to have a constant flow of cars. Now, granted, you're going to have some cars that are going to right from blueprint right into the body technician because has all the parts. It's going to be quick, easy. But with today's parts situations, we do not know for sure until after the blueprint's completed on which cars are going to be ready to go to the body shop. And that's why it's important to increase this at all times. The other thing is that it increases our customer satisfaction because we are going to know the day that that car drops, customer, do we have all the parts to complete this repair? The worst thing in the old scenario, we decided that we might not have all the blueprints done accurately for these cars until maybe Thursday or Friday. So who wants to make that call to that customer and tell them that you dropped your car off on Monday, but we're not contacting you till Friday, that car is not repairable because there's no parts for it, or that car is a total loss. So it's going to infuriate the customer, and it's a very, very poor customer experience. Another advantage of the Blueprint Center shop. This same linear flow also loads the paint shop more equal. We want the cars that, until it is in a stopping point, that it does have to be put back into parts wait hold. We may be able to flow through the body shop, but we may still be waiting for a critical part that stops in the paint department. So it's very important that that car gets put back in the parts wait hold so we can then start scheduling the paint department. We're very familiar and very good at scheduling for paint shop. You need to decide what is the maximum throughput of your paint shop. We know that if our goal is, if we have 2 booths and we need to paint 5.5 cars per day, and we know in our scenario, let me get the figures, 40 hours per day, so that's 20 hours per booth per day in our example body shop, 20 hours per day. That means 10 in the morning, 10 in the night, or afternoon. We know the average ticket is going to be, we would know that we need to cycle the booth twice per day, so 5 hours in the morning, 5 hours and 5 hours, 2 cycles in the morning and 2 cycles at night. We know that we can successfully cycle a paint booth in that time period, roughly 2 hours per cycle. So our goal, we know that if our paint department does not flag 40 hours per day with 2 booths set up, that we're going to have a failure. We may have days that we flag 50. We may have days that we flag 30. But we know on average throughout the whole week to hit our 200-hour goal, we need to average 40 hours. So we can see if we're going to have a failure very easily. This linear flow through the paint shop also goes back to reassembly. As you can see, the flow through the shop is going to be more linear, and the hours that they put through, if they are doing 40, they're going to dump that last percentage into the assembly and through detail. So as you can see, the advantages of the blueprint focused shop, and we know that this works very well on a $5 million shop, but how can I make my smaller shop work in a similar way? We just need to back up the numbers and first work with our end goal hours. If you're a $1.5 million shop, we can back figure the percentages and figure out what we need in each department and how many blueprints we need per day. The key is having a blueprint area. Blueprints are not done in a technician stall. They're done in one spot. Think of a NASCAR team. How quickly could you change the 4 tires on your car? 30 minutes, maybe an hour at your home in your garage. NASCAR team can do it in 30 seconds. So the idea is that this blueprint area, or blueprint areas, depending on your workload, are all set up. You have all the markers, the carts, the bags. And this team will become very efficient at processing the cars, increasing accuracy and increasing speed. Also, by having the specialization of the teardown team, we can increase the speed. Now, if your shop is more of a traditionally run shop, we can run what we call hybrid. Or if we want to slowly transition the shops so that the technicians we have buy-in and we don't have an exodus, we can do what we call a hybrid. So we have our 5 technicians, stalls, as we talked before, 1.5 size stalls, so a little bit oversized. And what we have is a 2 blueprint. We do not have a teardown team, but we do have 1 blueprinter. This blueprinter is focused right here on these 2 cars in this task. These technicians would come and they would be working on their cars, but they would come to the blueprint area to do the disassembly. Disassembly is never done in their stall unless it's a really big heavy hit, a large truck, a large SUV. They may want to tear down in their stall, and we allow that. So we have a little bit of flexibility in the hybrid system. But still, the focus of the blueprint should always try to be done in the blueprint base because of the reduced transfer of the estimator. Because in the old traditional one, he was all over the shop. And it was confusing which cars need to be worked on next. If there's a car in blueprint, it's easily seen what his next task is due. Also, it's cues to the technicians is if there's a car over there and they're told that they need one, that should be the focus. So if they're working on a vehicle, it should always be the priority of cleaning up the blueprint. The whole shop should be focused around this blueprint because this is going to be the roadmap that's going to allow the whole flow of the shop. Whereas traditionally the technicians would have liked to stay working on their task, we're going to try to ask them that they always come over and do the blueprint. At first, the technician will give you resistance because they won't see the end result. But as this starts to flow, they will start seeing their checks increase because they're going to get 15% of that labor off that blueprint. And it's going to be a linear number of cars that they are blueprinting, along with the cars that they're repairing. They're also going to see out of the parts weight hold, they're going to have a bigger pool of cars to pull on. So they're never sitting on buckets or never waiting for the next job. They're always accessible to bring in the next job. Okay, so how do we decide how many estimators and how many front-end staff do we need to operate this operation? We know that an estimatic team, an estimator, can write between 100 and at 150,000. There's a breakdown on accuracy. It's just too much throughput. You actually see a reduction in cells and too much input. If the way you handle this 100 to 150,000 is done in a blueprint process, you would have what you call a front and back team. So in the front office, you'd have 1 estimator and 1 CSR. This front-end estimator is going to take all the walk-in estimates, which we know is only going to be about 70% accurate. They're calling customers, updating customers. They're handling claims files. In the back, we would have the blueprint estimator. Now, if we want to hit maximum capacity, we know that this team right here should be able to handle 300,000 in sales. That's a breaking point. We probably actually need in this is 1 additional B estimator to do it comfortably and accurately. The key is that the blueprint estimator stays in the shop space, in the blueprint stalls. This reduces mind switching and fog. We get fog because our minds are not designed to continually change direction on tasks. And by having yourself centered on the task of blueprint, you can increase your speed and accuracy. The same with the front end staff. If they're if their concentration is on the customer experience, they can increase the customer's experience, increase satisfaction, increase speed, and it actually will reduce the mental load on this team. But we need to look at the total sales volume when we're looking at how many people do we need in this team. And we can tell if we hit this 100,000 with one person in an ultra small shop, he may still have to work the front and back, but he's still doing it, and he or she will still be doing it in one concentrated area, which will reduce their mental load. As you can see, the advantages of a blueprint-focused shop: more throughput, linear flow, better customer satisfaction, lower stress levels. It's counterintuitive to everything that we know about a body shop. The key is from the start of the process: more equal input of cars, more equal blueprint of cars flowing throughout the shop. You will get some resistance from your team, and I'm here to, if you ever need to reach out and have any questions about how to implement it. And it is scary at first. We transferred a couple of shops, and it is scary, and it's a little bit, it's just different than what we know, but it does work. And if you work the system and you work it consistently, it will increase your profits and your satisfaction. Thank you.